Mic live. Yep. Good afternoon. It's been a while, I think. It's probably been about 5 days or so since I last streamed or something like that. But I had a really busy week. Yeah, I don't know. Two birthdays, a carnival, a board games meetup that went on for a solid 9 hours. Mum's doing an exam right now. She should just have finished, I think. Just about. Been making her way back from the Excel Centre in East London. Um, yeah, I have a cold as well, so my speaking's going to be a little bit messy today, I think. But it's not going to be. It's not going to get me down. Sorry, that was a very grumbly thing to say. Well, okay, so since the last sesh, which I think happened somewhere in the middle of this chaotic week, I don't know, I don't remember what I was doing, to be honest. When I managed to schedule that, who knows? But yeah. So I was talking about stress testing. I set up as a kind of stress testing method using Bash shell scripts to basically just iterate the tests, so that even the tests that were passing most of the time, we could catch them when they were failing. And so the results of that are in results. So I've only saved, 2 stands for project 2, Raft. You can see where I am with the project in general in the story so far, just on my Twitch page. 2 is all like, okay, we're doing project 2 out of 4, it's Raft. And then parts A, B, and C. Food done setting up. Yeah, I never have time to get rid of all that shit. But no, that's all good. Yeah, I still don't know how to change my stream title from within Streamlabs. Actually, I think it might not be possible. I think I tried that at some point and it was just really, really not worth bothering with. So fuck it. We have transient children. Lel transient children. Um, so yeah, parts A, B, and C, and they have their own assorted tests, and we have basically I ran all of the. So I have 17 tests. Um, and 2C, 6, 7, and 8 are the ones that, I don't know if they're passing yet. 6 is regularly failing, so I'm going to be debugging using that one. But the others were mostly passing, except when they didn't. And so, in order to identify what the success rates were, I just, did this iterated testing. I ran each one of the ones before 2C6, so that's 14 tests. I ran them all 200 times just since we last spoke in the background. I haven't looked at any of the output, but this is basically the output from whenever these tests failed. And we also have this information here, which says how many times they failed, right? So I'll show you guys now. Pretty much, yeah. So 2A1 is not written down here because I initially tried to parallelize. And so I had 2A1 running in a different console window, and so it didn't get saved. But I started feeling sketchy about that, and if it might have biased the tests. But you can see here there's only one fail out of 200, so I can just, if I want to, just simulate the output that was there in the other console window, just type it in like this. But everything else, I'm not sure how much I can be bothered to clean this up, but like, you get the idea. It's down, shift, down, 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 backspace, down, shift, down, 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 backspace, down, shift, down, 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 backspace. Whoops, I think I deleted it there. Yeah, see, not even that works every time. But yeah, I mean, okay. Well, this is only going to take like a minute of my time since I started doing it. So you can, we have all the data here conveniently, so you can see what's going on, pretty much. I can isolate these, as in I can just sort this. I'll manually quickly, not quick sort, just manually quickly sort this into sort of ascending order of fails, so we can see exactly which tests. You know, we have strong evidence that these are working because they pass 200 times in a row, and then these failed occasionally. But I mean, even the way that I did the testing is slightly biased in some ways because I ran each test 200 times before moving on to the next one. I'm thinking maybe I should have run them all, you know, run through all 14 of them and then gone from the top and done it that way, and that might have made the difference. I don't know, but that's kind of preliminary evidence. I think this is good, right? Getting 0 fails in 200 attempts. Hopefully, there's no systematic bias there, systemic bias. But also, we've identified one test that fails a lot. So this is 85%, right? Um, so yeah, the pass rate is 85%. So I can write down the pass rate if I want to. You just divide. You take the number of fails, halve it, and subtract it from 100. Oh God, sorry, I have a bit of anxiety. I can just feel it in my back. I don't know what that's about. So these are these are 99.5%. So yeah, this is I was claiming all of them were passing at 90%. So I've identified one that does not pass 90% of the time, which is fair enough. So that's before deciding to even go into looking at why they failed, we just have some evidence of how reliable everything is, how many times the tests have failed. And so those logs are now there, so I can at will, either regenerate them if I make any changes. Although it does take hours. I mean, what I've done here took hours of just the computer being on and idling in the background. But I don't have to test 200 times. I don't have to keep testing all the tests, and I can just do a final stress test at the very end when I'm happy I'm finished. But I'm just trying to identify what seems like reliably, this is the kind of thing that I should fix because failures are quite common in this test, for example. If I only have one fail, it could have just been a complete fluke. It could have just been because we have these election timeouts, and those happen they're independently randomized, and so we can have them give the same numbers, as in the randomization fails to actually make them differ from each other, and so we just get everyone repeatedly calling elections at the same time over and over again. Something like that is quite fluky, and it will kind of explain why you get one fail. We could even look into it if we really want to know, but I think to some extent it would be wasting time to debug a test that passes over 99% of the time. The 85% one I have my eye on, that's fair enough to debug that, but the others, nah, I think it's unnecessary. And to be honest, I'm slightly suspicious about this one, for example, because I'm pretty sure this one used to fail when I was manually testing it much more often than 0 times in 200 attempts. It was I thought it was 1 in 10, but maybe I've misremembered. If that test passes 200 times on the trot, I don't know what to say. That's got to be fine, right? I've got to just accept that and move on. Alright, all of this, I kind of realized while I was doing it, by the way, that all of this is a bit, it's a little bit kind of redundant, or at least it's unimportant. It's kind of cool to do automated testing a bit, just for a change of pace, but we should only really do this at the end, once we've fixed the tests that reliably fail. So once I've fixed the tests that reliably fail, then my eyes, sorry, things fall apart. Yeah, that's it. Once I fix the tests that reliably fail, sorry, I'm so bunged up today. Yeah, then I'm in a position where I can basically just finish the project off. Raft, I could just finish it off by sitting down and going all right, look at all this shit, these tests that fail sort of every now and again. You know, I would like them all to pass more than 95% of the time. I think I'm happy with these, to be honest. This one is the one that I would want to fix. Like, it's something could be improved there. I don't know what. Maybe it's just tweaking, tweaking the timeouts. You know, the numbers that I'm using to keep everything desynchronized yet fast. Because yeah, when they sync up with calling elections, then you get split elections, and they just keep having to call elections repeatedly. So yeah, I think that's a good motivator for what I'm going to be doing today. I.e., none of this shit. So this is what last stream was about, and I'm quite happy to have been doing that. It was okay. It was good fun. It was relaxing to just kind of do a bit of something that doesn't require too much thinking. Because I really wasn't feeling like thinking on that day, to be honest. But today I'm still feeling a bit ill and a bit groggy, but I would say it's not such a big deal. Hopefully I have tissues nearby. Oh God. Might have to go and fetch some. You know what? I don't have to do a long stream. That's it. I can just because I do want to get a lot done, but if I'm not feeling up to it, I'll just be back tomorrow. This time of the day, right? It's pretty good, isn't it? I don't have well, there's a bit of cloud, I think. I don't know. But yeah, basically the lighting's really good, so I'm liking the webcam. When the lighting's good, then I can be all expressive on the camera. There's no lag. It's quite natural. So, it's a bit better. I like it. Um, yeah, you see that way. Let me just. So when I budge the camera down now, just a bit. Oh shit! Sorry, I nudged the microphone. My bad. I budged the camera down too far as well. So yeah, when I sort of put myself in this kind of centered position, you know, I can sort of move my hands around, have my speech syncs up and everything, and it just kind of feels like a very natural conversation, which is why you want to have the right kind of exposure on your webcam, the right lighting. Because I can't manually set exposure on the webcam, so I have to just have the room very well lit, and I've pulled the drapes up pretty far. I draped the drapes pretty far. So yeah, that's what that was about. I haven't been keeping on top of my VODs recently on, doing persistence, that section. But there isn't really anything to say. It's not that interesting what's happened since then. I'm just going into the final debug. Um, I'll go through the VODs today. I do want to, if only so that I can keep track of where I am. But from the perspective of what I'm doing now, I've implemented everything. I've done all the coding in principle. It's just a case of debugging, getting all the tests to pass. So I'm looking at the tests so far. I'm looking at the statistical stress testing, just doing the tests over and over again. It's not really what stress testing usually means, but I don't know. I've just taken it to mean that for the sake of my project. Stress testing is usually more about loads testing, but for me, it's just repeating statistical ideas. Yeah. So all that, whatever. And I also have tests that are reliably failing. So independently of what I've done recently, I'm just gonna look into that. All right, let's start with that. So I've said like in this sesh, I'm gonna be working on. God, yeah, it's fucking annoying. The camera position is just so hard to get it consistent in the middle. All right, camera's good, mic's good, live is good. Yeah, so if I raise my shoulder, you can read the text underneath the camera. It says that I'm doing test C6, which is precisely the one after the ones that are reliably passing. So 2C5 it was the last one you can see here. C6 is I think it's called unreliable figure eight. And at the end of last stream, I was looking into what figure eight is. And I was like saying, oh, okay, what I'm gonna do today is I'm probably gonna, try to theoretically and practically go through figure 8 to figure out figure to figure out what the test is supposed to be and therefore why it's failing. But honestly, I think that's slow. I've changed my mind. What I'm going to do instead is my traditional debugging method, which is quite literally just do a debug and see how far you get. Why the fuck does this keep popping up? See you in fucking hell. I told it explicitly I don't want that so many times. And it pops up within 1 minute. Sorry, just a little bit of gas. Should not be getting gassed about that kind of thing. Um, breathing, man, breathing. Oh, let me just quickly clear my nose. I hope I don't have to keep doing this today, but might become necessary. Dear me. Today's not a good day for health, I guess. Well, to be honest, I'm feeling my camera like yeah, I'm feeling quite good in my skin today, I would say. But it's just kind of I don't know, a bit congested with the breathe. The breathe is all wrong. What the fuck is this? The results. I don't want to commit the results. Do I have a git ignore on this project? I do. Yeah, I'm just gonna straight up ignore the results folder. That should get rid of all of that. Yeah, whatever. I'll commit this at the end of the day. But yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna just do a debug the way that I usually do debugs. No questions asked, just debug. So let's do it. Let's first of all, yeah, set up the session. Then I'm gonna do a test. 2C6 is the one we care about. I'm just gonna run a single one of these and put it in the out file. Fresh for some debugging. Yeah, this is the best way to do it. I get to tweak, I get to run the test. If the test reliably fails, then I can tweak my print debugging out statements between tests, figure out what's going wrong, why it's going wrong, over and over and over again. I think this takes about 40 seconds to fail. Hopefully it's going to be legible, because sometimes I find it a bit difficult to ascertain what happens just by reading those print and debug statements. It can be a bit sketch sometimes, but yeah, I wouldn't call it such a problem. It's just something that, if I'm doing the stress tests, if I make an edit in my print debug statements, I'll have to rerun hours of tests. But I can do that in the background between streams, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, it's better to find a test that reliably fails, because you can always just rerun it in about a minute. Oh shit, wait. So this test fails, right? Do we know why it fails? Wow, this is long. Yeah, hopefully this gets into some sort of steady state so I can figure out what the hell's going on. Oh, you're shitting me, it passed. What? I didn't realize this test passes sometimes. That happens? Wow. I thought this test failed all the time. Okay, good to know. If all of these tests pass at least once, that means my code is vaguely doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's just a question of reliability. It's just a question of making it. I mean, you know what I mean. It's like you can have bots and things that just like run most of the time, but like they can get shaken by a real world situation, and this is what this is intended to deal with. So yeah, it's a bit stupid that this passed, considering I think it failed 10 times in a row or something like that. But maybe I should have stress tested this just to see where I'm at with it as well. I don't know. I thought it failed 100% of the time. That's why I didn't do it. But never mind. It's cool. God damn it. Breathing. Why? Why? Dude. Never mind. Funny that test took like a minute. And it still passed. That's impressive. I guess it means it's a thorough test. Or my code is just slow, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. Mic, face, budged to the side yet again. God, I need to stop getting pissed off by this kind of stuff. It's just kind of a chronic unresolved problem. Like, how do I set up my camera stand on my bed to not move? I guess it's impossible. I mean, I should just set it up on like a fixed monitor, because then I know where the camera's pointing. It's also probably a bit better for my, well, not necessarily my posture, but health in general. Like with my butt, I guess I don't get dead butt as much. All right, hopefully this failed. Yeah, it says failed to reach agreement. Oh shit! I should have saved the copy of the one that passed. Damn it. Rip. That's a mistake that I didn't do that. Sorry. Never mind. It's not a massive problem. You can see they are agreed on most things. They just, yeah, it's kind of fails at some point. Maybe it's just because it's slow that it's failing. You can see it's committed the same thing a million times, by the way. That's not good, is it? Uh, well, not necessarily. If the thing keeps inputting the same thing over and over again, then you would expect it to get committed a million times, right? Wait a sec. This is a bit suspicious, isn't it? Because the logs start deferring somewhere. Oh yeah, they start deferring, but I mean, that's not to say the commits differ. It's just, I don't know. Where do they start deferring? Look at the size of these logs. These are like some hardcore stress tests that we're looking at. It's just like, this is why I've been kind of putting off getting into debugging this stuff, to be honest, because it's like, this is where it starts deferring. Yeah. No! Please! You know what happens. Yeah, it's just Windows, chronic Windows bug, which is if you're selecting and you flick down like this, it just flicks you onto the thing, onto the end of the previous row, and that's 100% unintended behavior. But it's been like that since Windows 95 at least. It's just a bit tragic that they haven't sorted it out, to be honest. Yeah. So I mean, I just wanted to highlight this and say, like, yeah, that's where we have a 3-point divergence here on the logs. But it's fine to have a divergence in the logs. These just get, fixed eventually. But it says failed to reach agreements on like some other number at the end. Who knows why? After 25,000 lines. Yeah, sorry, I was saying I'm really kind of a bit put off from even the prospects of just debugging something that's really just a big stress test like this, because I'll have to sift through so much debug output, and it'll just be, I feel like there won't be an actual proper bug the same way we've had bugs before. It's more just, I don't know, getting it to work a bit better or something. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I should just try it and see what happens, I'm just worrying a bit about, like, if it becomes impossible to diagnose these little things that are making it unreliable. Um, if they're not just like explicit bugs, if it's just like something is a bit slow or something, if I'll be able to diagnose that. I'll have I'll tell you what, a little bit of quick guidance from MIT on the subject. Let me see what they said for their hints for passing those late tests. Yeah, see, you will need to implement the optimization to allow a follower to back up the leader's next index by more than one entry at a time. See the description in the extended Raft paper starting at the bottom of page 7 and top of page 8, marked by a grey line. Alright, so I'll tell you what, I mean, I did try to implement this optimization preemptively. Didn't really work out. Or maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I have an optimization in place. But yeah, I guess what I forgot to do, is to read through the hint that this thing is giving a hint, but it's referring me to the extended Raft paper to find what the hint is, and I've definitely not checked that out yet. So that's a mistake that I made. I was talking about, what I think the optimization should be, and so I implemented my best guess at it. But yeah, I really should have checked this hint. I don't know how I managed to forget that, but never mind, it's in the past. Yeah, then we have a reasonable time, that's fine. Let's just pass all of them once and then we can worry about the reasonable time. And there's nothing else here. Everything else is about like how persistence works. But the tests I'm doing now are more about the project as a whole, so that's what makes it even harder to find the exact bits that we think are going wrong. So I'm having to really pick up on these like sketchy, booky hints that are being left around, like this shit here, in the hope that this explains the problems that I'm having, if you see what I mean. Well, hopefully it does. Let's see how we go. So check the thing. I'll just put a quick message in chat about what I'm doing. Following hint. Part C hint about the next index optimization. Reading paper. Yeah, it's just a kind of summary of what this is. Let's see if this resolves stuff. You never know, this could be the solution to all of our woes. Live, camera, mic. God, yeah, my face looks a bit out of focus, but I'm hoping that is just because, it's small. So if I just dig up my camera here, it's gone, it has gone a bit out of focus. Let me just fix it quickly. So easy for this camera to go out of focus, it's crazy. Manual focus. Maybe I should have just bought that stupid like Logitech camera that all the streamers use. I don't know. I bought one for 15 quid. It's fairly cheap, but camera, mic. Yeah, not to worry. Let me just get a fucking job, and then I can not worry about those minor expenses, because I just sometimes accumulate quite a lot of them, and then I'm like, yeah, feels bad, man, running out of money. Alright, fine, let's just do this. So, extended Raft paper. If I control F paper, I can find it. Alright, so starting at the bottom of page 7 and top of page 8, marked by a grey line. Okay, so it's this copy of the Raft paper. I can't use an up-to-date copy, or else the absolute references would not work. Alright, this is it. Marked by the grey line, so it's just this section here. Okay, let's have a read. Let's find out if this is the same as the optimization that I implemented. So the optimization I implemented is pretty basic. It's just like, so the leader's sending the follower stuff. The follower replies with the length of its log, and so the leader knows. Don't assume that the follower needs data starting from somewhere after the end of its log. Backtrack to the length of the follower's log if you're ahead of it, because it definitely needs more than the length of its log. As in so the leader sends data out, and from its log it picks an index and sends from there to the end of its log and sends that out to the follower, and so it tries to figure out the index to send from. based on guessing what the follower needs, and the follower definitely does not need stuff that is past the end of the length of its log. So if the follower just replies with the length of its log, the leader knows not to send stuff afterwards. That's my guess at what the optimization is. Now what I'm going to do is read what the optimization is. I did not realize this was here, damn it. I wasted all that time trying to guess what the optimization was. I also kind of made an argument for why I think there's nothing more that can be done than that, but I don't know if I can remember what I said. But let's just read it and see. Alright, so if desired, what do I want to do? I want to do Control Shift, okay. If desired, the protocol can be optimized to reduce the number of rejected append entries RPCs. That's the RPC, the message from the leader to the follower with data in it. For example, here we go. When rejecting an append entries request, the follower can include the term. The follower can include the term of the conflicting entry and the first index it stores for that term. With this information, the leader can decrement next index to bypass all of the conflicting entries in that term. One append entry's RPC will be required for each term with conflicting entries, rather than one RPC per entry, yes, which is otherwise what would have done. In practice, we doubt this optimization is necessary since failures happen infrequently and it is unlikely that there will be many inconsistent entries. Yeah, God, MIT is throwing the baby out with the bathwater with the stress test then, isn't it? Okay, I think this confirms some of my fears, to be honest. Okay, listen, there's something slightly sketchy about what I'm doing here that makes this slightly difficult, more difficult than it looks like it should be. So, listen. What this is saying is that, so the follower be including some information and sending it to the leader. That's the basic idea of what I'm doing. I just said send over the follower's log length. But I said don't do anything else, and there's a reason for that I'm about to explain in a sec. So here it's saying I shouldn't be sending the log length, and instead I should be sending the term of the conflicting entry and the first index it stores for that term. Or indeed okay. What? I don't know why they're writing it this way. I think what they mean by this is just literally the first conflicting entry, and an entry conflicts if at a certain index there is an entry. That's the conflicting entry, such that the terms are different. That's, I think, the definition of a conflicted entry, basically, for our purposes. And so here it's saying, okay, include the term and the first index it stores for that term. I think what it means by that is just find the lowest index where there is a conflict, surely. Do you see that as meaning anything else? I personally don't see that as meaning anything else. Yeah, it's like, okay, when rejecting an append entry's request, the follower can include the term of the conflicting entry. Yeah, so it finds a conflicting entry that's at a given index. Include the term, but also include the first index stored for that term, which should just mean like the first index where that conflict happens. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, the rest of this completely follows from that. I know this. With this information, the leader can just decrement next index to match the thing that the follower is saying it needs next, because otherwise the RPC will continue to fail until the conflict is resolved, which means it decrements one by one until it finally hits where the conflict is. Alright, so this is the problem. This is the problem with why this is not... I don't think this is necessarily possible in my implementation. The problem is that the follower does not actually bother to figure out where the conflict is in my implementation. And I did this to simplify the code because it was confusing me too much to not do that. Oh, because I was Control and Shift is why that was not working. Sorry, I was holding Control and Shift and wondering why it wouldn't open the file. Stupid. So this, you see the one line merge log that I'm doing. So earlier I had a sort of 10-line procedure here, replacing this, and that procedure is more in line with how Raft is supposed to work than what I've done. So what I've done is I am literally just overwriting the log, no questions asked. I'm not looking for log conflicts at all as the follower. And the fact that I'm doing that means that it's not possible for me as the follower to identify where I have a conflict. I just, I can tell here, I can figure out success and failure just by checking if at the previous log index, so at what the leader is saying, um, at the leader's previous log index, I have an entry matching the. Yeah, so don't forget the logs are all like the log is a list, an array, and so the indices are the array indices, and then each entry has a term which sort of identifies the leader based on the election term that it was leader in, and not just term but also the actual data. So the data is less important. We don't check that the logs agree by checking the data explicitly. We check the terms so that we know that that we can identify who posted the entry, because we basically assume that the servers are internally kind of consistent in that sense, that they always post one thing, and that's fair enough. I think that's how it goes. Like, so by identifying who the leader was by looking at the term, because there's only ever one term, one leader for every term, that's done. Then we can be sure that everyone will agree, because everyone needs to agree with that leader, and yeah, that leader. Sort of. I don't know. It's quite complicated. I don't want to go into it too far. Wow, that is a lot of fucking dogs I just saw. Oh my god, that was scary. I just looked out the side of my window and there's this woman pulling along three massive dogs. Well, actually, they're not even on leads. So I just look outside, and because I have such a small window section of street that I can see, I just see dogs, and I'm just thinking, is that an infestation of wild dogs? And then the woman walks past and I'm like, okay, fine. Fam. Yeah. Well. Yeah. So yeah, basically, yeah, I didn't want to go into the details of how because the terms in the logs, that's kind of used to determine who should be the leader. It determines who votes for whom when it comes to an election and that kind of stuff. So it's quite a subtle and deep system that I can't just immediately summarize off the top of my head. I have to admit, it doesn't matter too much. The point is, from the perspective of just merging logs, and that this step where the follower is following the leader by syncing its log up to the leader's log. You can see here it's like the test it does is, the leader sends out the log entry, so the index and term. That's what we care about. We don't care about the data in the entry. That the leader sends out that for the entry just before the entries it sent over as new entries. And so the follower checks if it has that, and if it does a merge. If success is true, then it does a merge, and it just deletes the log up until that index, and then appends what the leader said should be appended. Which is a pretty nice and simple system. This doesn't really allow the follower to identify what is where it conflicts with the leader. But I mean, in order to do that, the leader would have to send, like, I don't know. In order to do that, the leader would have to send more information. Because, I mean, the idea is always that if there is a conflict anywhere in the follower's log with the leader, then the follower should overwrite its entire log from that index to the end of the log. So we're trying to find the earliest possible conflict, and that's how we're doing this. But the thing is, when success happens, that's when we do the override. So it's not that we are looking for the first conflict, it's more along the lines of if there is a success, which is intended to happen after a few failures, then we do a merge. But, failures mean that a merge should happen later on, so I think that's fine. I don't see it. It's saying, like, the term of the conflicting entry and the first index it stores for that term. It says here when rejecting an append entry's request. So what we're saying is in situations where success is false, the follower can include the term of the conflicting entry and the first index it stores for that term. But the follower, I mean, all that the follower is doing in that situation is it's checking if the leader, I'm confused, I have to say. It's checking if the leader, if its entry at the term that the leader just sent agrees. And so if there is a fail, that means that that entry does not agree. But that entry is precisely the entry that the leader sent over, which means the leader should decrement by 1. Like, we can't look backwards into the previous parts of the log, because those are not checked. So the leader doesn't send data over for the previous parts of the log. So how is the follower supposed to figure out? How is the follower even supposed to figure out where the first conflicting entry is? Okay. Given what I've said, I think I've probably misunderstood what this means. Let me try reading it again. So, God, I think I have an eye infection or something. My eye's starting to hurt. Just try not to touch it. Dear Lord, I can never get myself to stop touching my freaking face. So listen. Situation. Let's try to follow this hint. First of all, you see that we are rejecting an append entries request. That's an important detail. What that means is that the leader sent over its previous log index and term. So for its previous entry, it sent over the index and term, the entry that precedes the entries it just tried to send over as actual data. Right? That happened, which means that the follower and the leader disagree at that index, which is called prevlog index, and the term is prevlog term. So we found a conflict there, and it's not possible for us to find a conflict earlier because the leader does not send any information at all concerning earlier indices in the log. Okay, fine. So in the event of a failure, there was no match, which means that the leader would have to back up by 1 and check again, which means in the next step, we will be able to guess again and get a bit more information by going further back in the log. But that's in the next step, i.e. the next send and receipt of RPCs. Right. So we need to preempt that somehow. That's what the motivation is for what's about to follow. So here we go. The follower can include... Wow, I'm so bad at highlighting. The follower can include... Oh, it's because you can't highlight across the page. It can include the term of the conflicting entry. Yeah, but the term of the conflicting entry is literally just prevlog index because that's the only thing that is checked. We can't check anything before that, obviously, because the leader does not send any data before that in any form. It doesn't send either the index and term of that entry or the data itself, which it does for all the entries after that one. But like everything before that entry, that where the conflict is detected, the leader's not sent any information concerning it, so we can't actually identify that retroactively. What we can do, on the other hand, So the term of the conflicting entry, the follower doesn't need to say what the term. No, sorry. Wait a second. Okay, I think I figured it out. That entry, where the conflict is detected, is known to the leader because that is prevlog index, prevlog term, as I've just described. But the optimization is that the the follower can include the term of the conflicting entry. So first of all, we pull the term. So prevlog index and prevlog term, those are the terms that the leader sends out. Prevlog index is where the clash is found, and so the followers at prevlog index has a different term. Or the entry doesn't even exist, but that's slightly different. I'll deal with that separately. That's a bit of an edge case, I guess. But presuming that there is an entry there, so it's literally a conflict. There's an entry at that index, prevlog index, but there's a different term. Then the follower sends the term back, but it also sends back the minimum index for which that term is registered in its log. So it scans its log back linearly, I guess, in order to find the previous index. Do we want to linearly search that, or do we want to do a binary search? I don't think we can assume that the terms are actually ordered. I don't think we can assume that because it's just a total nonsense of chaos, to be honest. I don't think you can even make the assumption that in a given service log, whether it's leader or follower, all the terms are increasing with all the entries are increasing with respect to term. So term um, being an increasing function of index, I don't think that's a thing that you can assume. So linear search seems good. Linear search also obviously easier to implement. Fucking binary search is just difficult. I don't know what makes binary search so difficult because it's such a basic concept, but you just have to get the bookwork practice to not fail that at an interview. Okay. Yeah. So whatever. Listen. That's it. That's something we can do. That's an optimization that it didn't cross my mind. It's a bit of a subtle optimization. I'm crying quite hard now because I cannot breathe. Do I not have like tissue anywhere? There's no tissue that's within reach. I've kind of played myself by not setting it up. Nothing in my pockets. Let me just have a look because it's getting really difficult to breathe. Um, Fuck's sake. Do I really not have anything? Okay, I'm gonna have to get up and get a tissue. Sorry, guys. I had no. Wait. I had toilet roll. It was here. Whoa, sorry. Fan fell over. I. Ooh, careful. If the internet cable slips out again, I'm gonna like be so angry. I had a toilet roll that had like just on my bedside, and that's disappeared for some reason. What did I do with it? Did I just fall down the side of the bed or something? I don't know. Man, okay. All right, I'm gonna take a 1 minute break to just get tissues and stuff. But I think I figured out what they mean by the optimization, and I've also figured out I think why I didn't get it cotton onto it earlier at the point where I was trying to figure out what it was. Um, so yeah, BRB, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. I have my back text. I could just put that on, can't I? Oh my god, did I chop another flea? That's probably what's happened. What the hell is that noise? Probably just dead insect. Okay. Yeah, be right back. Let me just set the camera. I think I might have frozen it, but I'll sort that out in a sec. I know how to unfreeze it quickly. Scott, is that alright? Yeah. Is that okay? If I hang back a little bit, I want to just pull it down so that it's kind of, yeah. So I have the bottom of my stream kind of free. Sorry, the bottom of my camera window free, so I can just put like random text in it. That's what I've been doing recently. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. Yeah, let me just fix the... Oh, it's not even frozen. Okay, good. That's good news. May as well reset it regardless. Okay, live, camera, mic, wait. Okay, that's better. Live, camera, mic, sick. Pushing on, continuing. Yeah, just, I still need to find that toilet roller that I lost, but I managed to find a few tissues that were just over there, so should be good to survive. Yep, so, once again, this is what the optimization should be, okay? So, there is a clash that is detected by the follower replying with a fail to a success equals false to an append entries message, which is a new data message from the leader. And in the event that happens, what triggers that happening is that the two compare logs at the entry that the leader said is the one that is just before all the new data. So checking that they agree on that so that the new data can just be pushed in by the leader. So the follower can merge the new data from the leader because they agree at the entry before that. And so the leader sends over that entry, and if there is a fail, that means that the follower detected the clash in the log at that entry. So either it didn't have an entry at that position in the first place, or it did, and the terms were different in those two entries. And so then it sends over the term, and then what the follower can do actually, sorry, it knows that it's failed in that situation, as in that request has failed, that message. So it won't append data, but what it can do is it can pick up, the entry where the clash happened, and pick up the term that that entry is for, and then back up the log to the earliest entry of that term, and then the leader can just jump to sending that over. So basically what we're doing is we're leapfrogging, like, the piece of data that we know is wrong, we're guessing, right? What we're trying to do, because of course if there's a failed message from the leader to the sender to add data, then what the leader does is it backs up the previous entry by one and tries again until it gets far enough back through the log of the follower that they start agreeing, and then it's in the position it can send over all the new data, and then they are synchronized. That's how synchronization of logs happens. But what we're saying is we want to backtrack more than one at a time if we can, and so we're speculating that it would be good to backtrack throughout all the entries that the follower has down for that term where there was an error. Because, I mean, the reason that's a good idea is that the terms identify a leader, and so it identifies that the follower was being guided by probably a different leader, or a leader that's no longer relevant. And that, in principle, applies to everything that that leader sent over, not just this most recent entry. So it's a good guess, it's a good speculation that everything in the log will be wrong from the point where the first entry with that term turned up. That's basically the idea. Because the term identifies a different leader. So if it clashes at one entry on that term, it probably clashes for all the entries in that term, all the way up to the beginning. And so we can speculate, and the leader can decrement from where it's going to send the data all the way to cover the entire term, or the entire block of data coming from that term from the follower's side. So that's why this is a good idea, and why I didn't spot that is, well, basically I didn't spot the idea that that is a good speculation. So it didn't occur to me. Um, it didn't occur to me in what way the follower can determine. Considering the leader, it's a bit of a tricky thing to figure out by yourself, and that would explain why I didn't manage it. Well, I mean, I say that now to make myself feel better. But like, the reason I thought it was impossible to do something like this is because the leader does not send any data prior to its most recent entry. As in, prior to the entry that it wants to check. Right? Sorry, I can't speak because my throat is blocked. Let me just sort that out. Hang on. Sorry, another quick break. Really bad day for throat today. So sorry. Alright, okay, so this should be like slightly further down. Yeah, something like that. Camera, mic, live. Whenever I move it like that, I should check that it's still more or less in focus. Which direction is focused here? That one. Alright, let me just... I'll crouch slightly, I don't care. It's fine. Posture? What posture? Live, mic, yep, and camera. Yeah, so this is the reason I thought something like this was impossible is because the entry where the clash is detected is the oldest entry that the leader sends over, and so I thought you can't compare anything earlier because the leader doesn't provide you any evidence to compare it with. Cool, but we're not comparing, we're speculating. That's the thing. We're not identifying the earliest clash. We're speculating on what the earliest clash could be based on an understanding of how term works in general and how term identifies leaders. And so a clash at an entry that has a given term probably means that all the entries with that term are wrong because they correspond to a different leader, which was probably disconnected, and it's reasonable to leapfrog that. So it's just that idea. It didn't occur to me that we could optimize by speculating rather than just actually figuring out where the earliest clash is. And I managed to put in an optimization that should help with the earliest clash, but it's quite a minor one, I think, and I don't think it's all that useful. And wow, this dog looks quite violent. It was kind of walking on its hind legs only. It was just on that level of like adrenaline. I don't know. Getting dragged by a chain as well. That's a bit sketchy. Yeah, so that's why I didn't figure it out, but it makes sense now that I'm reading over it, and this makes more sense as an optimization. I can't believe I didn't. I would have saved myself a bunch of effort if I just spotted that when I was trying to implement the optimization. I didn't read the hint. That's basically what happened. My bad. Alright, well, let's deal with it now. So we're dealing with failure only, right? So we only care about failure. So we're going to actually have an else block here. So this is all still happening if React happens, and I'm completely happy with that. Like, the React clause is just a general idea of like, do not do this in situations where the person sending you data is so out of date that they shouldn't even be listened to. Then you should just not, the follower should not do anything. So that's what React is about. That's abstracting that idea without going into how it's defined technically. Yeah, okay, whatever. So in the event of reply fail, we're gonna send over some more information, and we're gonna send over basically the earliest kind of clashed entry. That's what we really care about. So We need to add, I don't know. So append entries reply needs to receive a few more things. I'm not going to undo the optimization I've already done. I'll just leave it in. I don't see the harm of having that there. It works, I think. Um, so the follower is sending over in situations of failure, but I mean, the entry needs to be in the reply as a kind of structural thing anyway, regardless of if there's a failure or not, just because Go is kind of strongly typed, and so it expects consistent structure always. So in the event of failure, what information is the follower sending back? It's sending back, first we have prevlog index and prevlog term. We want to identify the follower's term, where prevlog term should have happened at prevlog index, and then we want to identify the follower's index at the minimum of that term, basically. So I'm gonna call it conflict index and conflict term. I think that's pretty good. So conflicts, yeah, index and term are both just standard int type. It's really just a case of, let me dig up the problem window. No problem so far. I haven't even, well, I specified some struct details, but I haven't set them, and apparently that's not a problem. Wow, throat. Seriously, dude. Yeah, I thought I might have like an unused variable thing, but never mind. So we have conflict index and conflict term. And these are set to 0 by default, which is fine because 0 specifies a dummy index. There's nothing there, and 0 also specifies a dummy term. So the default value of 0 is fine, and so that's just going to be okay. It's not set if success happens. If failure happens, we need to set conflict index and conflict term. So that's what we're going to do now. You can look at how success is defined here. First of all, prevlog index has to exist in the log. That's the first thing that is actually even done. Okay, let me also, at the same time I'm doing this, I'm going to look at the leader and how the leader handles managing next index. So, if success happens, then do this stuff, that's fine. And then we have else. So else is the failure case. And the failure case is the only case where we care about log length, for example. Yeah, absolutely. For me personally, I would set log length. I'm only going to set log length. I'm only going to set it in case of failure. So, no, I've instantly changed my mind. I'm going to set it always. I don't know. It's just kind of, if log length can be calculated, it doesn't cost us anything to calculate it, so why not? But my thinking for not setting it is that we only ever use log length in case of failure, and so this way we'd identify bugs that violate that assertion. But no, I want to keep it, because why wouldn't you just always set log length? I don't know. I prefer it this way. It's just a personal preference. Set log length first. May as well. And then it's like, yeah, okay, reply success is log length bigger than prevlog index? And if so, that means that prevlog index exists in the follower log, and so we can check the follower's log and see if the terms match up. And if they don't, well, basically here we go. So we set success first of all, and if fail, that's what we care about, then we assign reply dot conflict term to be the term that failed. So basically, okay, we have two things to worry about here. Log, there are two cases. So success can fail either because this failed or because this failed, and the two are gonna determine different things. So Yeah, this is going to require an else if to specify that we only even bother replying with this stuff. We only bother doing the optimization I'm talking about in the situation where um, the terms can be compared, so the log length, this has to, be true again. To me personally, I would say maybe a slightly different code structure. I don't know. This is all personal preference and not that important, but I would say we should set success. I think it would simplify the code slightly to basically do this, right? So we set the log length in the reply first of all. That's fine. So we're looking at the log length, and then I go if this, then all of the other codes basically goes under that. So we only really do anything interesting in the situation where the followers log actually contains, this is saying the followers log contains an entry at prevlog index. That's what this line of code is saying. Because if that doesn't happen, the fact that we've set log length means the leader is going to do that optimization where it tracks back to the log length so that this is true the next time it tries to send an entry over. But, camera, mic, yeah, just, it always pays to check that you're still live. But in the situation where that is true, then we can just do all the other stuff. So I'll show you what I mean. So first of all, reply.success defaults to false. So if this does not actually happen, then success is not set, which means it's false still. So we can get rid of this. And we can just say reply.success equals, well, whether or not at the previous log index specified by the leader, the terms match. So that's all good. And in that situation, we have... I'll check the chat in a sec, just finish my train of thought. In that situation, we can just, we don't have to put this condition in again, basically, so it's just slightly neater code. If success merge log, else, first of all, figure out what the term is, and okay, I'll finish that off in a sec. What's up? Welcome back. Hadn't been streaming for a few days, just because I had a very busy week, but yeah, honestly, I feel like I'm so close to the end. I'm so close to the end of Raft now. What I'm doing now is I'm looking at an optimization. So I was talking about this earlier. I think you might have actually been there. Talking about how basically this bit of code here, where I was talking about how the leader was trying to figure out what it should be sending the followers, and an optimization that skips having to do that, decrementing it just by one in situations where the follower needs more information. So then just decrement by one and keep trying until the follower finally has all the information, but skip it somehow, optimize it. And so I tried to guess an optimization for that, but it turns out I literally just forgot to read the hint properly. So it says, here it says like you need to implement an optimization, but then it says what it is. It's just I had to check this reference out, and I forgot to do that, which means that I guessed the optimization and I guessed it wrong. So I'm implementing the correct optimization now, basically. Although the optimization I've done is fine. I mean, it's cool having that optimization as well. I don't think it hurts. It was just, I just brain farted by forgetting to read like the rest of the hint. I don't know. Wasted a bit of time, but never mind. Yeah, the optimization is... The reason I didn't think of the optimization myself is because it's speculative. It's not detecting where the follower and the leader's logs disagree. It's speculating on where they disagree. You find a conflict, first of all, but then to find the earliest conflict, I don't actually find it. I speculate that the earliest conflict happens at the entry in the follower that has the same term as the entry where there was the conflict. So the follower's term is the same in the place where it's conflicting with the leader, so the term is different to the leader's one at that entry. But I track back through the follower's log all the way back to the earliest entry that has the term that was wrong, because the term that was wrong identifies a different leader. That's the intuition. So it's like, you only get one leader per term, and so one leader sent all of the entries that have that term, and so it's probably the case that that leader was wrong the entire time, because now we've replaced it with a different one. And so for the new leader not to have to backtrack through all of the old leaders' work, we have that check that we go back through all the entries that have that term, and the follower can do that. But the follower doesn't know that there's a conflict there. Nobody knows, because the leader doesn't send the data back before the entry that actually conflicted. It's speculative. So that's why I didn't think of it myself. I was like, I don't speculate. What? What are you talking about? But yeah, basically, that's what it turned out to be. So the way the optimization happens in practice, this is getting more and more complicated, I have to say. What I did just now was I just abstracted a bit of code out saying, well, this is the previous optimization I did effectively. I'm saying, if the follower's log doesn't even contain an entry that the leader says it should have, because the log isn't long enough, then, I don't know, skip all this shit. Success will get set to false, and then because the leader will be able to, in that situation, compare whether the log length is actually big enough. This is that optimization right here. So that's already in place. So we can assume that the log is long enough. So that optimization, the old naive one that I put in, is not relevant. So in that section of code, I set success. So success is set to false by default, so that's fine. I set it according to whether there is a clash in terms at that index. At the index that the leader is saying that the follower should have the correct entry at, if the terms clash. If they don't clash, then success happens, the follower merges, log update, does commits, does a persistence even, it does everything. It's the else that we're interested in, and this is where I implement what I was just describing. So I put in a couple of new struct variables, as in a couple of new variables in the reply the follower sends to the leader, called conflict term and conflict index. And so conflict term, here it is the term that is wrong. So success is the leader's term, prevlog term, from the args, which come from the leader. Is that the same as my term at this entry? And if the answer is false, then I make a note of what my term is. So this is the same thing, rf log, that's my log, at the index that the leader specified, pull the term out. That's what this is. So I have the term that is wrong, and now I have an index that is wrong as well, namely just prevlog index. But I need the earliest possible index with that term. So I'm going to do a linear search backwards until I find an entry that has a different term. And that's it. I send those back to the leader, and then the leader backtracks all the way to that entry, and that's the optimization. So that's pretty chill when you put it that way. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I start my search at args.prevlog index. That is the first entry that is definitely wrong. My search is going to be, it's going to be backwards, but it's also going to have it's also going to have an exit condition. Yeah, what is for loop notation? It's starting, ending, as in the exit condition, and then the step condition. The step, not condition, like statement. Yeah, statement. That's a statement, isn't it? These are expressions. Never mind. Get confused. It's just nomenclature. It's not that deep. The exit condition is just I don't really want the. I don't want to go past 0. If we're above 0, it's chill, but I don't want to go past the end of the log, obviously. So I'm backtracking through the log. And this is what I do. Oh, I'm pressing caps lock instead of tab. So I'm just comparing terms to the term that is wrong, basically. So I want to find the minimum index for which the term is incorrect. So I'm going to do that using my standard dynamic programming index variable. In fact, yeah, I'm just going to set it immediately. So I'm going to say args dot reply. Hopefully it's not a problem just editing the same part of the reply over and over again, because no, that's a fixed memory address, and no, that's not worrying about things that are probably not actually. I think my intuition is just bad, because I was worrying about whether editing a variable that belongs to an object is slower than just a variable that doesn't. That's probably not. That's just stupid. I shouldn't think like that. So I'm gonna, yes, this is gonna be my, I'm trying to find the minimum index that conflicts. So I know that args.prevlogindex conflicts. So that's where I'm going to start my search. But I'm also going to continue decrementing. Basically I'm just going to say it's going to be pretty safe code. It's just going to be like, if my log, at the entry specified by conflicts index, no, sorry, the entry specified by I, which is, going down, if that is not the same as prevlog index, no, what we want is sorry, we're comparing terms. So we've already determined what conflict term is. And what we're doing is we are saying if we have found another term that agrees with this term, so further back in the log, the previous entry, if its term is the same, then I don't know, set conflict index to match that term. Sorry, as in set conflicts index to match the index where that term was discovered. But the point where that stops being true, that means that we've changed the term. So we're trying to backtrack through terms. We're trying to pick out every term going backwards. And as soon as we find a term that's different, that means we should stop speculating. So then we break the for loop. Is this code good? I mean, I know I'm editing variables quite a lot here. I could just say at the point where we break, I return the value +1. That would probably work and be slightly more efficient. Very slightly more efficient. Code is still order of n, linear time. I don't care. This is simple. We know what this does, right? So we've set the term to be the term that is wrong. Then we set the index to be the first index that's wrong, but we want to optimize this and make it as small as possible. So we start at that index, finish at 0, because I equals 0 is a dummy entry in the log that's definitely not right. Decrement that until we find the one that works. Once we've gone too far with the decrement, do you know what? I'm gonna just do it the slightly more optimized way, because I don't see why not, honestly. It's not that hard to just do that. But I break the for loop, but before I break the for loop, I set conflicts index to be that entry +1. Okay, because that definitely works. The reason being that this entry, the starting entry, definitely works. So, I mean, I can if I want to, considering I've set args.prevlogindex. I've already assigned that to conflict index, so I know that that works. I can actually start looking at that -1, and then I just keep checking them. And if they are, if this is false, that means that the terms have actually changed, and that means the one above that, which started out at prevlog index, is correct. And so I can just set it to I+1, which, assuming this immediately fails, that is literally equal to prevlog index, which is correct. Assuming it doesn't, the previous one was fine, so +1 still works, and so this code is good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's a bit nicer. I mean, I don't even want to call that premature optimization. It's just doing the code in a logical way. This is not difficult to read, in my opinion, so it's fine. Maintainable and shit. Well, okay, I'll put in a comment, to be honest. I'll put in a comment just to say, like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Conflict index is minimal such that is the minimal entry with same term. It's not actually strictly the minimal entry with the same term, because okay, I'll put in another line just to make it exact. It's the minimal entry with the same term. With the same term such that every entry above has same term. From it to prevlog index. So prevlog index is where the term clash is detected, and conflict index is the minimal entry that harbors the same term that was picked up in the term clash. Okay, that's it. So that's the information that is sent back to the leader, and now what we want to look at is how the leader handles this new information. New techers for the leader. So if reply is success, then it's easy. We just do the stuff that we've been doing all this time. And so we have two different types of failure to deal with, okay? Why does it say here if next index is greater than 1? Okay, next index being greater than 1 is just a standard condition that says, like, do not decrement below 1, because 1, the next index should never be below 1. If it hits 0, like, there's nothing at entry 0, and so that's wrong. As in, there's nothing at index 0. So that, the first entry that should be sent over is always at least 1. So this is saying, if it's equal to 1, then just leave it alone. Try again. That's the minimum it could possibly be. But then we have this other condition saying log length is not 0, but the next index is bigger than the log length. So we do a decrement if this is not true. Can I figure out why I've written it this way? I'm slightly confused. Live camera Myco live. Okay. Okay. In general, if the next index is greater than 1, we should be decrementing. Yes, yes. What we want to do is skip the decrement in the situation where the log length is a non-zero number that is, if next index exceeds log length, but log length is not 0, then we set it to that. Yeah, that's fine. I understand now. Log length has to be bigger than 0, because we're assigning log length to the next index, which has to be always greater or equal to 1. So it's good to just check that it's not 0. And in the situation it's not 0, then we do the optimization, which was just check that the next index is actually out of scope, because then we pull the next index back so that it's within scope. It then equals the length of the log. Should it equal the length of the log or the length of the log plus -1? Hang on. Well, no, next index optimally prev. Yeah, next index should be the length of the log, because then the previous log index that gets sent out is that -1 in the data. Because the previous log index is always the next index -1 when at the points it gets sent in the next message from the leader to the sender. So that's cool, because that's then within scope, and so yeah, the optimization no longer applies. So that's good. All right. Well, what we care about is, okay. So we're looking at the failure case. I think, yeah, just do another optimization. Basically, just type it like this. And so in this block, we're gonna do the next check. Does this require an if statement at all, or should we just do a reassignment as per the usual? Well, I mean, we've gone to the trouble of calculating conflict index and conflict term, and that's something we're gonna always do. So we may as well use them always as well. I think, yeah, instead of decrementing by 1, let's just always use the thing that we figured out. So we have conflict index and conflict term. Those have just been sent back. Conflict. Oh, hang on. Conflict term we don't care about. I just realized that now. Why does it say here? Wait, hang on. I'm confused. So, in the paper, it says the follower can include the term of the conflicting entry and the first index it stores for that term. Yeah, so it can bypass all of the conflicting entries in that term. That's the intuition that I was trying to explain, and why that's a good idea, because those correspond to one leader. It is speculative, though. It says here, one append entries RPC will be required for each term with conflicting entries rather than one RPC per entry. It says will. I feel like it's not, I don't know. That's not completely clear to me, but that's why I call it speculative. Maybe it's provably always true, in which case it's a bit too deep for a lowly mathmo like myself. Well, someone who doesn't want to get in too deep with this theory. But yeah, basically we don't actually have to send back conflict term at all. That's useless information. Conflict term is needed in order to calculate conflict index, but we don't need to send conflict term. Ooh, well, yeah, we don't need to. All we need to do is set conflict index. Basically, conflict index is the first index that's wrong, and so that should be next index. So let me just set that now. The next index is, the first bit of new data, which means the index before that is the one that is checked the next time. So next index should be the one that first clashes, so that the one before that, which is probably correct, is checked on the next bout, on the next round of stuffs. Okay, so let's just set that now. Damn it, it is Monday. I've just realised I've missed house again. I've missed 3 episodes now, but I may as well just catch up today on all of them. Yeah, may as well make today about doing that, to be honest. Nah, I'm all good. Okay, so yeah, I just know my mum got back, and so I'm just slightly distracted. I'm going to stop streaming pretty soon. I've now figured this out, so I'm going to just, before continuing with more tests, just hope that this works by rerunning some of the tests. And once I'm convinced it does, I'm just going to leave it there for today's stream. And I'll come back, Yeah, tomorrow at 12 p.m. I'm going to try and get into a routine of just, doing this stuff in a reasonable hour with reasonable lighting. Um, so yeah, let's hope that this works. I've pushed it all out. Um, we have these two optimizations in place now. We have to make sure conflict index is never set because we're assigning next index the value of conflict index. Next index has to be greater or equal to 1. So conflict index, I'm just going to quickly check that it's never set to 0. And that's true because you can see I here is always greater than 0. args.prevlog index is well, it doesn't matter. For this for loop to be run, I greater than 0 has to be true, and so I plus 1 has to be greater than 1. Yes. So next index has to be greater than 1. Next index equaling 1 is not something that happens in this situation because... Are you sure? Wait. No, actually, do you know what? This should be greater than or equal to 0. Reason being that... yeah, I mean, we're gonna... I equaling 0. This is the thing. We want to make sure that we set... Yeah, that was actually a bug. So I have to be careful. I introduced a bug there. Basically, we have to have, within this for loop, we have to make sure that we trigger this if block at least once. And the way that that's going to happen is that I equals 0 happens eventually. Because what happens then is that the term is trivial, it's 0 for that default entry. Conflict term is not equal to 0, I'm pretty sure, in any situation. No, it is possible for conflict term to equal 0, actually, now that I think about it. But in that case, conflict index was always set to prevlog index, and that's the edge case where there's nothing in the log, so it's not possible to find one that is earlier than prevlog index. So conflict index gets set correctly in that situation anyway. But like generally speaking, 0 is going to be the exit case. It's going to be there's a different thing happening here, as in we're finding different terms, we're comparing different terms, and then it gets switched to 0, which means, okay, set it to that plus 1, which is 1, which is correct. Okay, I think this is now fine. This is the thing about, implementing it that way is the way I implemented it just before was slightly more safe. I dared to take a shortcut here. I really hope that doesn't bite me in the back, because I think it's mathematically transparent enough that I can risk it. But yeah, part of me is thinking, why don't I just manually set next index to equal 1 if it's 0? That would be quite safe. But you know what, I'm not going to do that because I think it works. Alright, let's do the test. Let's hope that this works. Hopefully I'm not going to end up with bare bugs. I just hope. Okay, so I'm going to check. This is all about, do I waste time passing tests in part A again? There's no need, because this is all about the log syncing and merging. So I'm just going to run the tests for part 2B and hope I've not broken anything. The tests for part 2B we're passing, don't forget, almost all the time. Oh, see, yeah, immediately I've broken something. I got an index out of range happening in the leader code in line 45. So I'm accessing at prevlog index. Wait, what's going on here? This is send heartbeats that is now broken. Is that right? Yes. I've managed to break something completely different. Let's just fix that, and then I'll get back to work, I guess. Work. As in back to debugging. Okay. No, my session today, I'm just gonna sort this out, get it working, and then I'm gonna quit and just continue the next session. Okay, what's happened here? So I've tried to, yeah, I got an index out of range error, trying to access the log at prevlog index. How does that happen? Well, presumably what happened was prevlog index got set to -1. Uh, so that I have a very quick way that I can just check for that. Crash. Yeah, here it is, -1. Fuckers. Oh my god. So I managed to violate my own, yeah, assertion there. That means that something's very wrong in the way that I'm determining the index. If I'm managing to get a value of -1 out here, so next index has to always be 1 or above here. It just must be greater than or equal to 1. Children plus. What is that noise coming out of that child's mouth? Alright, so let's fix it. So we care about this. We care about this. And we just want to guarantee that we never... Okay, sorry, no, we care about this. We just want to guarantee that next index never gets set to anything that is below 0. So let's just do that the safe way, which is... No, do I want to do it the safe way? I want to figure out... No, because this means that there's an underlying bug. I don't want to do it the safe way. I want to figure out why it was getting set to 0 in the first place. So I'm gonna just log, conflicts index, and this is not conflict index. This is just log length. So the two different skips that I have, I'm going to log them to see which one is causing the problem. You can bet that it's going to be conflict index, though. I know it's conflict index because this explicitly has a check that this is not 0 before it assigns the thing to it. So conflict, okay, yeah, I'm being stupid, sorry. Focus. Conflict index is getting set to 0, that's what the problem is. And okay, I can prove that quickly just by saving this and running the usual... just get the crash to happen somewhere. Yeah, CI 0, that's what the problem is. Conflict index getting set to 0 is not good. What the hell is this number, 8507? I don't know what print statement is causing that. Never mind. Yeah, I have to be careful just putting in generic print statements that I absolutely can't identify where they're coming from. I have to be very careful about that. That could turn out into just a needle in a haystack search to find what's causing print statements that I don't want, Alright, conflict index getting set to 0, that should not be happening. So why is that happening? I is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, conflict index gets set to prevlog index. Because that's where the... Wait, no. Conflict index getting set to 0 is correct. It is possible for the earliest conflict to be at 0. How is it possible for a conflict to happen at 0? That's just nonsense. So you're saying prevlog index... Like, surely it's not possible for I to end up at -1. Well, it is if this was sub... Oh my god, what? God, I'm getting confused. Okay. I'm going to print debug I equals I in order to figure out how this stupid loop is working. Get rid of this. Go test. Yeah, it doesn't really matter how you do this as long as you just get to the bottom of it eventually, so I'm not going to obsess too much about my debugging technique. Let's just get the crash and... I'm sorry, what? Oh, there it is. That took a while, didn't it? What the hell are these numbers? Oh, the numbers seem to be coming from that thing. Okay, I understand. Yeah, if the logs get too long, then never mind. But this number 615 here, I don't know what that is. I don't know which print statement that's coming from. That worries me slightly. Just these random 615s. Okay, so I want, I equals. Do you even see a single I equals in this text here? Like, I don't think there is a single one. So to be honest, yeah, it seems to be a case of the loop not getting run at all. Here, where it's where conflict index is set, so it gets set preemptively to 0 here because prevlog index was 0. This is in the case of failure. But we have React is true. We have prevlog index is within scope. So are you saying prevlog index should definitely not be 0 because the terms do not match? No. No. Prevlog index is just the leader saying this is where I'm starting. I'm starting from prevlog index. That doesn't necessarily conflict at all. Oh, okay, I see that. That's a bit sketchy. Okay, slightly confusing. Yeah, I'm making the assumption here that. Well, I mean, surely yes, we have detected a clash in terms here. At the previous log index, the term does not match the leader's one. But in order for that to happen, surely for that to happen, the index cannot be 0. Because at 0, everyone by default has index 0 and term 0, and surely this must pass, success must pass in that situation. I'm gonna have to print debug slightly more intensively. Let's just sit down and push through that. I'm gonna just figure out exactly what is set to what where, because I don't know, there are lots of different places where this could be going wrong. So first of all, let's print the conflict index at the ends here. I'm going to also print prevlog index at the point where it's assigned. Well, no, I mean, in the event of failure, I'm gonna print prevlog index and prevlog term. So this is prevlog index, PLI, prevlog term, and the point is we're comparing the map prevlog index and prevlog term, and we're also pulling out conflict. This is conflict index, isn't it? The initial oh no, this is conflict term. Conflict term. Yep. So let's have a look. We have, I think, now all the information we actually fully need. This is part of args. It comes from the leader. Alright, so let's just bang that out. Go test run 2b. Let's just do 2 to make it a bit, I don't know, trigger the crash a bit more quickly. So here's the problem. If I can just get at the bloody prevlog. Is this saying that? This is getting weirder and weirder. Basically, because I've put all my print debug statements in the failure section. I've put them all in the failure section, which means that I'm struggling to figure out where the break is happening, what the exact situation is. Okay, let me just move myself up into a slightly more comfortable position. Stay comfy, boys. Alright, is that centered? It's not. It's tilts it slightly. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, the focus is good enough as well. I'm not gonna obsess over the focus. Just check that the stream is still working. Camera, mic, liveness. Yep, cool. Alright, let's finish this off. Oh god. It's getting weirder and weirder. Go test run 2B. Let's send it into out because yeah, I want to figure out what's going on here. This is extremely strange. I have all these print debug statements like CI, CT, whatever, but they're not getting printed at all, which means that a failure, it doesn't even seem to have happened. There doesn't even seem to have been a single failure. It's just saying, okay, runtime error, index out of range at the position where we're determining, I guess, next index. So yeah, next index, rf.nextIndex ID. Don't forget, next index just absolutely must stay greater than or equal to 1. This just cannot be violated. So here it says, NI2230, here's your crash. But what has brought that crash on? Next index getting set to 0 somehow. Well, next index, yeah, I mean, it gets assigned. It gets assigned in 3 different locations. So NI, okay, next index set of conflict index. That's what's causing the problem, right? Yeah. I'm glad it crashes quick, fast. Yeah, conflict index is setting it to 0. So how is that happening? It's getting set to 0 because conflict index was 0. In this situation, the else here. So we're in an else if here, which means that replies.success surely is false. So I'm going to put in a replies.success at the end of this thing. So looking at it again. Yeah, replies.success was false at the point where this was assigned, okay? This is supposed to be my standard decrementation technique, so we have to make sure this is working correctly. Conflict index. Was that ever assigned? If replies.success is false, which I have ascertained, and I mean that's the only way that this block of code would be running. So append entries again though, like if I scroll up and look for CIs, this bit of code is not getting run at all. The else section here, which should be the only way that conflict index is ever set. Which means that, if we look into this code, conflict index, it is dealt with in this block of code here, conflict index, reply, blah, in this else block. Before then, the only place where it's assigned is here, which means that conflict index must be returning a default value. So that should not be happening. So the problem is React. The React has to be what the problem is. I mean, surely that's just process of elimination, isn't it? React allows a success to return as false, bypassing this. Okay, so the fact that this is not happening, I guess this is also allowed to not happen, but in this situation, oh wait, no, this is reply success. Okay, this is reply success being true. So this doesn't happen because reply.success we just found out was false. I hope I correctly found that out for you guys. Mike, live still. So where else could it have gone wrong? You know, this, if this fails, then reply.success could easily have been set to false as well. But if that happened, then this would have triggered. The log length check would have triggered first. No, this code is far too sketchy the way that I've programmed it. You know, there are lots of reasons success could end up being false. We have to make sure that we're picking out the right reason to use our shortcut on. Or at least just break it down so that we cover every single false case. We just cover it in the handler. So false can be thrown because React is false. That's the first reason it can be thrown. Second reason is because of the index out of range in the log. Log does not stretch far enough. And third reason it can be thrown is because of the test here, which is supposed to trigger the final condition, as in the conflict index resolution that I'm doing. So we have three different reasons why false can happen, and so we have to make sure that we're handling all of them. Success being false, that's what I mean. So this is the thing, if React was false, then the leader should return. Realistically, it should not be doing any leader stuff at all. So, you know, it sends out all of its messages in this step, but it doesn't wait for their replies. It does a leader check here, which I guess if the React false doesn't come through fast enough, then this leader check isn't going to actually get hit. So yeah, you got to watch out for React, the way that that's being handled. That's a bit subtle. I don't know, like, what are the three outcomes that happen here? You know, log length being used, conflict index being used, and if React is false, then we don't care because we're going to become the follower eventually, so we may as well set next index to be like absolutely anything. I'm not convinced React false is what's causing the problem, to be honest. I don't know. To me, it's a bit sketchy, isn't it? Just trying to figure out what the cleanest way is of resolving the three cases. You know, so it's a case of success false. This needs to be removed because it's no longer relevant. We're not decrementing by 1 at all anymore. So doing this test preemptively is just pointless. So delete it. Okay, that's gone. So this just handles the entire false case now. And the false case comes with a lot of stuff, I guess. A lot of different reasons it could have gone wrong. So one of them is that the followers log and the prevlog index, you know, just return the wrong thing. I mean, in this situation, what we want to do is assign. Should I just totally refactor the code in such a way that the follower always returns what the next what its next index should be, because that resolves all three cases. It resolves React being false because the follower sends the leader information, but the leader is going to discard that, but it receiving extra info from the follower is not a big deal. It resolves the log length case because we just assign log length to the suggested next index, and it resolves the conflict index case for the same reason. Yeah, seems pretty simple, so let's just do a full-on restructure. For starters, conflict term is not something that even needs to be sent out, so I'm just fully deleting that from the reply struct. And conflict index is now going to be next index. It's the same thing as the leader's next index, because next index gets set to that regardless of what happens. If React is false, we can still set next index. That doesn't damage the program in any way. It just means that the leader is going to probably become follower before it gets to send out another heartbeat, which is separate. Separation of concerns, you know the ones. So yeah, let's just set next index. Seems pretty simple when you put it that way, doesn't it? So yeah, basically we have to log length. Yeah, we don't care about log length anymore either. Let's delete that. So we just next index is the one thing that we are returning. So let's just delete all references to log length. Do not set log length anymore. It does not exist. 7 problems, 9 problems. Time to deal with them all. Thankfully, yeah, this will be my best friend when it comes to refactoring code and deleting a variable that isn't, that we don't want anymore. So prevlog index and prevlog term, those still very much exist. I'll delete all the print statements because I'm sure this is going to sort it out, to be honest. First of all, we set conflict term. This is no longer an RPC variable, so I'm just going to call it this way. This is the conflict term. And so, yeah, it is going to be up to the follower to determine what its situation is with regards to what data it should be receiving next. Reply.success is easy. We can actually, well, match index has to be updated as well, so I'm going to just leave next index, I don't know, unset. Yeah, leave next index unset in the situation that there is a success. That's totally fine. Next index is again going to be failure only, a failure only variable, and so we're just going to make sure that we only ever use the follower's next index in the situation of failure. Hopefully that's not too confusing. I'm still going to call it next index. Set only if success equals false. That's pretty simple assertion that I'm just going to lay down casually. So yes, it's all about next index now instead of conflict index, but we just have to make sure that we cover every situation. So reply.success means that next index need not be set. React means that next index realistically need not be set either. We just don't care. If it's 0, that's dodgy. Next index should probably be set to 1 by default, to be honest. In the case that React comes back false, you're saying set next index to 1. React is not replied though. React, I don't. It would complicate the program if I sent React back to the leader. So it's just internal to the follower right now, which I think is good. Reply.term, my term. So do I just for safety assign next index to not be 0? But next index being 0 should just, I don't know, Don't make any assumptions, seriously. Okay, let's just deal with the other two cases first, because that's what next index is really intended for. So it's pretty simple. We have an if statement handling the two cases, and we're going to put the if statement here instead of where it used to be. So the if statement is easy, isn't it? All it is a comparison of whether we are in bounds, basically. So this. Sorry, that goes here. So how does this translate to the code now? Well, what it should be is that my length as the receiver, my log's length should be strictly less than it should be strictly less than, as in it should be out of bounds of prev log index. Prev log index is the thing that the leader. So I'm just going to reason through this to get it right, not get the off by one error. Prev log index is the thing that the leader expects the follower to have. If prev log index is not even in bounds of the follower, so the follower does not have an entry at prev log index, which is equivalent to the log length being strictly less than prev log index, because that might be off by one. Hang on. The prev log index has to be within bounds. What is that equivalent to saying? This is, an index being within bounds means that is equivalent to saying that the length of the array is the index itself is strictly less than the length of the array, is what that's equivalent to saying. Let's phrase it that way. So I'm gonna I was off by one, but I'm getting around that by rewriting it this way. So if the index is within bounds of the log, that means that it has an entry there. Oh shit, that statement is already covered here, isn't it? Careful. How do I want to do this? Because if that returns false, so I'm just going to write this the natural way with less than instead of greater than. I just usually prefer having things in the correct order, left to right, numbers bigger, smaller to bigger. That is a case of false. Yeah, okay. Success gets set here. And then we do merge and whatever. Okay, yeah, we want the else case of this if block to handle. Dear, this is getting messy. We want that to handle setting replies dot next index to be, the length of the log, which is the biggest possible. It's as in the length of my log is the smallest possible thing that I can expect next index to be. Anything bigger than that would be definitely wrong for next index, because then prev index is going to be out of range. See, that optimization that I thought would be good, it's made it actually harder to handle the code as a whole now. I've realized that. It's unfortunate, isn't it? Just how it goes, I guess. This is now redundant. So yeah, this condition is what determines setting replies at next index to this thing. And replies at next index also gets assigned here, using the code that we've done here. And this gets assigned the normal way, the way that I've done it now. So, yeah, success, failure. And this failure is assuming that this is true, which means it's the correct kind of failure. Also assuming react is true, which means that we pick the conflict term and then set the next index to prevlog index and just decrement it by comparing the term to conflict term and set it to +1 at the end. And this is singular. Sorry, I don't know what that was about. So where is log length being used? It's being used in the leader code. Yeah, okay. So the leader now behaves quite differently to how it was behaving before. Success, fine. Else, rf dot next index at id equals the thing that drops out of failure, which is replies dot next index, which just ditches all of this shit. Okay, I deleted a couple of print statements as well, but like the entire if block is now gone. And yeah, it's not just that, it's also oh yeah, it's not replies, it's replies at ID. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, and all of them are capitalized always, but so useful. The debugging, it says, oh, it doesn't have the lowercase version, but it does have the uppercase version. Ooh. So yeah, this is now, it is possible for this to get set to 0 still, unfortunately, but in that case the leader should not be working. It should become a follower. But that's handled by the different bit of code, so I'm just gonna set it to a different value, I guess. Set it to a default value. In fact, a good way of doing it is just to say like, if next index is greater than 0, because it has to be greater than or equal to 1, I shall put it that way, then yeah, set it to set my next index to that. In fact, let me just do an else if, just to have that safety condition there. Then set it. Else, in the situation where next index comes back as 0, we just ignore it and don't touch my own next index in that situation. I don't care what the leader does, let's just pretend it's not doing anything. Okay, yeah, a lot of time spent trying to sort that out. I really ran into a bit of trouble there. But I mean, it happens, and I think I've sorted it out now. Now that I have a working next index that is only ever set in case of failure, the else here, and if reply.success getting set for the first time, and if success. Code is more than a little confusing, I have to admit. I'm not sure if I should maybe just put in some comments, I guess. It's yep, prev log index inbounds, I guess that doesn't even require a comment. Then yeah, we set success, and if success, do the merge, else prev log index inbounds but term clash, and then this is prev log index out of bounds. Alright, fuck it, let's hope this works. I've had enough. I need food. I need more food. Can't believe I forgot to get milk today. I just about survived that just with breakfast with fruit and like a pastry from yesterday. I'm glad. I'm glad I'm still feeling fine about all that stuff, to be honest. I'm gonna YOLO debug by setting the debug switch to 0. Just hope it works. What the? Oh, I typed into debug console. Don't do that. That will cause a crash of some sort. Visual Studio Code's debug stuff just does not work very well. Alright, I think we're back in business. Should I do a stress test again? Maybe just like a 10-point stress test would be good. You know, just to be sure that the change I've made has not messed anything up permanently. The intermittent bug. Yeah, it doesn't cost me anything to just re-stress test. As in, just run the test over and over again. I only really care about running the 2B tests again, so I think that's what I'll do. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just hope. Let's run the 2C tests to see if that optimization, this is I guess the big moment, to see if that optimization has actually fixed the code and made it past the other tests. I'm also going to just turn off this debug code as well, it's also unnecessary. Go test run 2C, let's go. Yeah, it's the, persistence is going to pass because that was easy and it works and has nothing much to do with everything else, I don't think. I don't know. Well, I guess persistence does test the whole code to some extent. But yeah, what we care about now is, whether it passes test 6. The other tests are kind of okay, I guess. So hopefully my new optimization makes it, I don't know, faster? Figure 8. Yeah, part of me wants to look into my debugging a bit further, see if I can log times as well, so I can see if a change I made the code faster without manually testing. And yeah, just making it so that I can automate all the tests rather than just one test at a time. That would be good as well. I don't know. This test is 40 seconds. How long is that test supposed to take? I don't know. Let's check here. In the example here it says 33.2, so my code is a little slower. Thankfully it's not much slower. Figure 8 unreliable is supposed to take 35 seconds, in MIT's example. But yeah, let's see if the fact that I managed to pass this exact test once before. Oh shit, it's faster. The fact that I managed to pass it once before without doing this optimization means that this is literally just a stress test. And reliably passing the stress test, that's what we care about. If everything passes, that is the beginning of the end. I still don't know. Do I want to stream the next project? It might be just a bit too much effort on for me to just set it up, because it requires cooling the laptop, getting the webcam in position, all that stuff, and the amount of speaking as well. So maybe I'm going to stop streaming. Either way, it's been no regrets. It's been a great experiment, something I'm really glad I've done in my life. See, I'm already talking as if it's the end. I don't know, I just have a feeling I'm done. It's over, because I implemented that last fix. And that's according to the hints that MIT provided for passing the stress test. How long is churn supposed to last? 16 seconds. Oh, rip. Okay, we're fucked. No, this is not going to pass. Passing test 6 is interesting though. Unreliable figure 8 test. churn. Okay, I have a bit of a problem with this test in general, which is that I think it's hanging for no reason. As in, I think it's hanging. I think this test literally completely freezes, as in it completely hangs and becomes totally unresponsive. I don't know what churn means though. Let's see if we can get a hint. I have a theory off the top of my head, because this was happening before I did this change. I have a theory that my testing setup, which freezes previous instances of Raft programs by locking their state variables. I have a feeling that that is what is causing this test to fail, to lock up, because I think it just fully locks everything. But the fact that it doesn't time out is a bit strange. But I don't know. Let's see if it says anything. So let's scroll down to the churn test. We have some information about figure 8. So churn. What does churn do? I wish I knew. It's just using this word. It's using the internal churn function with false and true in unreliable. So internal churn, this is the test. What does it do though? It concurrently creates some clients. Maybe one of them is the leader. Maybe leader will commit. But what is it doing? It does some disconnects at random, crashes at random. Is there any kind of timeout? Is this just gonna go on forever? I don't know. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, it seems that we've passed this test. I'm gonna stress test this. Maybe 5 times. But this test failing like this is... Let me just set that up now immediately. So I'm just gonna git bash the test. I'm gonna do a stress test 10 times on test 2C6 basically, just to see if we have legitimately passed this. Oh yeah, God, I have to actually edit the damn thing in order to get the correct number of tests, don't I? Scrap. Wait, where is it? Oh, the debug file is in source Raft debug.sh, this thing. Yes, just set this to 10. Maybe I should have set that to also be a command line variable, but I don't know. I'll decide that later, because I could also set the other tests I want to do as command line variables, but then I should probably just use commas. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, let's just run this. This should take 40 times 10 seconds, which is 5-6 minutes, so it should be done by the time the stream ends, is what I'm saying. So we'll know if it fails sometimes, but like, what's going on with churn? That's, I wish I knew. This is really strange. Okay, let's also just do a... I don't think this is going to change anything, because both of the tests are churns, but I just want to run 2C8, the other test, the final test, and see if that does anything, or if it just freezes again. I don't know why that is freezing. Did I change something in the tester? Did I mess something up? Should I just re-download the original tester from MIT's repository? Which I'll have to do at the end anyway, just as a safety check. Once I'm happy that I've done everything and done with like the stress testing and all that. Oof. Friend of mine has a dissertation due in 3 days. I've just clocked that now. Good luck to him. Yeah, I don't want to edit the tester while it's being tested by the other piece of code at the same time. I didn't think that through, did I? Because I wanted to get rid of my debug codes, as in the code that I have in the main Raft code that specifies how the thing exits. Delete all of that and see if it can pass the test at least once. Because if not, then you know that's where the problem is. But it's just completely hanging, and it seems like it's deadlocking. But Go doesn't seem to be detecting that. Maybe I should be doing like the race condition tester or something. I don't know. This is going to take a while. The 10 tests, the automated 10 tests. Maybe one of them will fail. Maybe it won't. I don't know. This is quite funny, by the way, because the computer just went to sleep. It's like it went to sleep in a really bad position, and then I don't know. It took me a while to wake it up, but yeah, it finished pretty fast after this test failed. To be honest, all the successes came through. Yeah, maybe I should have echoed output for this. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, the churning is causing problems. I don't know. Okay, well, I'm not going to investigate this any further. I'm going to finish streaming for today, and I'll be back tomorrow at 12, pushing out the end of this project. Honestly, I think 2 or 3 sessions tops, unless I encounter a massive bug. Now that I've correctly implemented that edit that I was going to implement earlier, 2 or 3 times tops should do it, and honestly, that'll be it for Raft. That'll be the end. Yeah, simple enough. So I'll just be back at 12. Yeah, 12 p.m. on Tuesday. Again, still very unmotivated with my sleeping, but hopefully I'm gonna reorganize my life a bit. You know, you'll see me on Twitter today posting a bit about that. Hopefully, yeah, I don't know. You know, sometimes you just get to that point, a point in life, a kind of juncture where you feel like you really should be doing things a bit better, being a bit better, I don't know, being a bit more efficient in some things, or keeping up with some stuff, or just getting on with what's important. And I feel like I'm in that kind of position right now, where I need to decide some of that stuff for myself. God, you know, if one of these tests fails, maybe it takes like an obnoxiously long time, and so I'll have to leave this alone. But you know what? I'm gonna run churn. I'm just gonna I'm gonna give up on this. I'm gonna if what I'm about to do interferes with these tests being run, then I'll just deal with that later by rerunning the tests off stream. That's fine. Again, just grunt stuff, no thinking required. That's why I do it off stream. You know, I'm doing all my thinking on stream pretty much, almost all of it. That's kind of the idea. I don't know why I'm browsing that folder, but yeah, I wanted to just comment out the entire kill code. Comment, you know, all of it out. Or okay, the important bits. Do you know what? I'm a perfectionist. Comment it all out, and see if this means that running churn actually works. You know, instead of having to exit status 2, which means I manually interrupted the test after, as you can see, 2 minutes. This one is even longer. This one was crazy, the amount of time I left that. God, how do I have that much time? Yeah, so let's see if this changes anything. Maybe it'll change something on this front. No, apparently not. Okay, let's go. So this test, I think we said it should only take about 20 seconds. So hopefully it'll die fast if the change that I've made actually fixes it. But if it's just hanging, and this check... Oh, there it is. Okay. It passed. Yeah, so my code is what was causing the problem. I need to figure out why that is so that I can continue testing the way I want to test it. It's important. Look, the change that I've just made, it seems like, oh, you know, you can just do that and it's all easy now because you can just... This is going to pass, by the way. And when this passes, the project is finished. It's completely done. So let that sink in. Let that sink in. But also, I mean, the reason I want to... I'll show you now. I'll do a quick demonstration. So the reason I want to have that lock in the kill section, which basically freezes previous instances, is because if I don't do that, the instances interfere with each other, and so when I run the 2C tests sequentially, one after the other, you're gonna find a complete nonsense of like just things interfering with each other and causing chaos with the tester, I think. Do you think that's not going to happen? Because that was happening before. That's why I've done it. Like, it caused me problems in my MapReduce project and then in my Raft project as well. That, you know, I just could not repeat tests because testing output was interfering with other tests, which seems crazy, but that is what was happening. And if this now just passes on me without me having to change that, then well, then I guess I can just get rid of this and just put it up to some sort of up in the air random chance or something, or some unexplained phenomenon for why that was happening before. But that was definitely, it was a big problem, and so I had to fix that, and that didn't cause any of the tests to fail until the last ones, the churn tests for some reason, and I don't know why that is. Probably has something to do with just rerunning the same instances, reviving previously dead things that involve running kill multiple times, or maybe kill was interrupted or something. I don't know, but yeah, don't know what to say about that. Seems a bit silly, doesn't it? This works, by the way. This yeah, test 6 passes. That means that I've resolved that and I've implemented MIT's optimization correctly. Oh God, my face is. Why has this happened? Sorry about that, guys. Just had to nudge the camera down. Single monitor streaming. It ain't easy. It ain't safe for block. Not even for the cops. Doing that with an American accent, don't know why. It ain't safe for block, not even for the cops. Yeah, now we're gonna have a couple of quick churns, and it just doesn't. If I run the 2B tests, I'll bet you they're gonna fail though. That's going to be the last thing I do before leaving the stream today. Well, maybe even, no, the 2A tests actually. But the 2A tests are the ones that are unreliable anyway. That's the one that I'm going to have to look into because it fails 15% of the time. In fact, do you know what? Let's just run go test. Check it out. This is the end. Beautiful friends. I mean, look, okay, this passed, which means it's probably going to pass everything. Oh, I don't know. What? How is... there it is. Look. Problem. And the problem is in test 3, which is a test that you can see here, 2B3, was previously not failing at all in 200 attempts. So you take my point that it's likely that that is because of this change that I've made here. So I think I'm going to have to resolve that because I want to be in the position where I can run go test and it just works, the entire thing works reliably. I want to be in the position where I can run go test like, 100 times and the failures are rare enough that it passes 90% of the time, even if one of the tests fails, if you see what I mean. Not just running individual tests over and over again. It's just a kind of extra security, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too anal about it. Maybe I should just, it kind of works in one frame of reference. It's legit, it legit works. So why don't you just do it? But then I get, this kind of bullshit happening because of the interference. And I don't know if that's because of the interference, but it just seems likely. Because why else would the test that passed 200 times in a row fail? Yeah, so anyway, that's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about. It's not a big deal, I'm done for today. While this is finishing, I'm just going to do some commits and things. So I've commented all of this out for the time being. Let me just, reorganize it. Yeah, just so that it's a bit easier to re-comment back in. Yeah, just like that. So I can put it back in if I want to. But I'm pretty sure this, in the earlier tests, I'm pretty sure this has been causing failures. It's the kind of thing I would inquire with the MIT help desk if I could, but never mind. Well, the good news is, the testing is saying that I've implemented my optimization correctly. Everything is still working, so I'm confident that everything is good. Maybe I will, just before I end, actually add in a quick comment to say what I did when I edited append entries, to speculate on what next index should be. Speculating on reverting all entries with that leader. Yeah, why not put in a few comments there, just to explain it. With a bit of a linear search, no problems having that. Yeah, so we have a fail just because that one test failed once, but in general, 213 seconds is how long it's taking. It says here in the guidelines, it should be passing the entire project. The full set of tests should be about 4 minutes of real time. I don't know about CPU, but I don't care about CPU. It's slightly more effort to test that, and I was getting suspicious results when I was testing CPU time. So just normal time, real time, 4 minutes it's saying, and this is just over 3.5. So it's slightly slower than I would like it to be, but I think it's pretty good, to be honest. So yes, do some. I don't know. I'm not going to do anything until the next session, and then I'm going to figure out how to finish up the project. Final debug, stress test, and figuring out this problem with the tester, which apparently never went away because it was fully freezing the churn tests, the very last 2 tests. But as you can see, everything is passing pretty much. It says here fail, right? But if you look at it, all the tests passed except 2B3. And 2B3 is a test that I individually stress tested it 200 times and it passed 200 times. So I don't know what to say. It's just, we're done. We're done. It's just getting it settled, I guess. Doing a bit of minor extra stuff. And I'll also do a bit of a retrospective recap on the project just as a kind of ending. But I would say just in terms of like the absolute work and tests and all that, it's just finished, right? It's just a case of getting it fully reliable, getting the tests working correctly. Those 2 things, really. Getting the reliability up and the tests working correctly. Because depending on my test settings, I get 2 different outcomes. Different tests start failing, despite no change in the code. Feels bad, man. Okay, that's it for me. Nothing more to really talk about it, I don't think, today. I'll be back at 12 p.m. tomorrow deciding basically how to finish up the entire damn project, pretty much. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. Ultra Hal for popping in. Everyone who follows, everyone who's just popped in and out every now and again. Raft, it's about to end. Session 27, very much getting on to the end now. But yeah, let's finish it up. Tomorrow, 12 p.m. British Summer Time, which is, for reference, 20 hours, 20 hours minus 11 minutes from now. You can see 4:11. So 11 minutes ago, it would have been 20 hours from now. Sick. All right, well, that's it, I think. Nothing more to worry about today. Let's just I uncommitted this shit. Yeah, so just this is session 27. Push that onto Git. And yeah, I'll go through again and just if I can be bothered, I'll do VODs. If not, honestly, I'll just do them at the very end of the project. It's not a big deal. Like I said, nothing much interesting has been going on. In terms of implementation, I've not done much. I had to do that optimization today that I thought I'd done earlier. No biggie, no biggie. So not much has been happening. You won't have missed much if you haven't looked at the not even looked through the VODs, but just seen what the VODs are about. I say to myself because I can't be bothered to do them, but I will have done them by the end anyway. So hopefully I'll do them today. If not, I'll just do them when I get the chance. Because I want to maybe look for a job. Maybe seems like a plan. Just do a bit of that today. Maybe. Don't know. All right. All good. That's it. That's it. See you tomorrow at 12 p.m. 20 hours from now. Later.